can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat.
ESBR Boxing in association with sharpbetting.co.uk, your home for betting tips and analysis. Obviously, they've got, sports relating to boxing, which is why we're here, but obviously other sports as well, horse racing, football, and a wide sort of panoply of sports you can get involved in. Betting tips analysis on that site. Please do check it out. But Owen, we are here talking final predictions for a WBO World Super Lightweight fight. Good fight this, I think, to be honest with you. The unpredictability of Teo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza Jr. who's obviously off a good win recently against Jack Carroll. So the question I'm going to ask you first and foremost, Owen, for your thoughts on this fight, but actually just go straight in with your prediction as well. Who wins this, Owen, how and why?
It's an interesting fight. Like you say, Teofimo Lopez could be fighting a literal bin man or an undisputed world champion, and there's still an air of unpredictability about it. Barboza coming in on the back of a big win, so it makes that interesting as well. I think Teofimo Lopez is going to outpoint Barboza. I don't think it's going to be the best fight of all time by any stretch of the imagination. I just think when it comes down to the nitty gritty, Teofimo is better in every single department. There isn't a single element of the game where I'd agree where Barboza would have an edge on Teofimo. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Teofimo turns up almost, it's relevant Chris Eubank, Billy Joe Saunders style. Doesn't really do much for the first 4 or 5 rounds and ends up losing. So it's Teofimo Lopez for you, but I'm going to back him. Going to back Teofimo Lopez with a sort of like maybe a 116, 112, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stinks the gaff out.
Yeah, and I think the interesting one for me on this is Teo Lopez. Like, what sort of Teo Lopez is going to turn up? To be honest, I think we kind of know that Barboza's obviously, coming off a great win against Catterall's obviously been active in condition, whereas Teo Lopez seems to be kind of in shape, to be fair. But I suppose boxers tend to sort of get in shape quite quickly when they're kind of muscle memory, etc. But what sort of version turns up? I think you look at it, Barboza doesn't really have the power to trouble Lopez. Lopez for me could either win on a stoppage, possibly second half of the fight, or maybe on points. But I see this as being a Teo Lopez victory. Let me just bring in our partners here, sharpbetting.co.uk, obviously on their kind of, polling. They've got Teo Lopez a strong favourite, 1.4, 60% people think he's going to win compared to Arnold Barboza Jr., odds at 32% sort of underdog coming into this fight. Do you think that's fair, Owen? Do you think that's fair, or do you think that's wide, or do you have it maybe closer than that due to the unpredictability of Lopez, or do you think that's actually entirely as it should be, that kind of favouring Lopez in that way?
They're both really. I think it should be really when you look at the abilities of two fighters, CVs, who they're for, etc. Teofimo should be a heavy favourite, but like you say, when you sit and think about it, we've seen him be so underwhelming and under par against lesser opponents previously. So it could be a case of when he fights the best of the best, we see a top Teofimo, but when he has these sort of normally as you look on like mandatory gatekeeper style fights, we don't get to see the best out of him. So I think the odds are fair. I would have Teofimo as a comfortable favourite, but there's just always that air of unpredictability on what shape he's going to turn up in. Is he going to come looking headhunting, or is he just going to, is he going to be poor on the night? So I'd say they're fair, but as you say, you can never know.
Yeah, a couple of questions I suppose to pick up on just here. I suppose, do you think this fight is for the number one at the super lightweight division? Obviously, the other names you've got campaigning down there. You've got the likes of maybe of Devin Haney, you've got Hitchens, Barboza Jr. Obviously in this fight ranked number 3 in the ring rankings, and Catterall, Puello, Lopez still ranked to number 1. But is this fight for you for the number 1 in the division, or do you think that maybe Haney's sort of an intercessor in there as well? How do you see it?
I think if anyone scrolled through the channel, we ask this question a lot, and I think the answer changes fight on fight. I think quite a few of us on the channel at one point or another have said Jack Catterall was probably the best at 140, obviously before Teofimo moved up. He'd lost to Barboza fair and square. If Catterall had got that on the night, it would have been a disgrace. So you probably would. You got to throw Devin Haney in there. So I'd say Teofimo Haney is probably the biggest and best fight that we can get. I know Devin Haney's got a fight on the card as well against Jose Ramirez. Obviously, you have got the likes of Richardson, Hitchens. If you got Russell floating about, you still got Sabriel Matias floating about. So there's some decent names in the division. You know, Leon Paro's there or thereabouts as well. So I think it's one of those divisions where it's not the best division in the world by any means, but in terms of competitiveness, I don't think there's one fighter like Teofimo. Probably you could argue him or Haney could run away with it, but based off performances we've seen from them, it's probably the most competitive division with X amount of fighters that are in and around the level that could fight for titles, etc. So I'd say Haney and Lopez, but for the number one in the division. But as I say, there's loads of good competitive fights you can have.
Yeah, you've obviously got Teo Lopez winning this, as do I. Let's get your thoughts on what you think's next for Lopez if he wins this. Is it maybe a fight with Haney, or do you see him going a different direction? What do you think's coming next?
I think in terms of money, in the division, Haney's probably going to be the biggest fight. You know, the likes of obviously Jack Catterall should have been in. Realistically, I thought he should have beat Barboza, but it wasn't good enough on the night. Richardson Hitchens is good again, but doesn't carry a lot of weight. How much weight does Leon Paro carry? How much weight does Gary Russell carry? It's a difficult one. But other than Haney, I just see that's got to be the fight. It makes sense competitively. It makes sense money wise, pay per view buys wise. But again, it's Teofimo Lopez. He might retire again. He might move down. He might move up. Who knows what he's going to do? You know, I think the retirement thing was. I don't think many people believed it, but it was a shock at the time when he said it. So it wouldn't surprise me with anything that he does next. But for me, the only fight I want to see next is Haney Lopez.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's one I want to see as well. I think it's big fight time really for these sort of guys. Now I don't want to see any kind of, belts is obviously one thing, and you can sort of chase belts, etc. But I'd like to see big fights. So yeah, I'd love to see obviously Lopez versus Haney, and obviously will be interesting whether that fight gets made next based on, as you said, Haney coming into this event also with fighting on this card as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Owen, thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Obviously, check out the channel. We've got other sort of reviews, previews, big fight breakdowns, and all that sort of stuff. All up under one roof, your boxing needs are catered for. And check out again the guys at sharpbetting.co.uk, obviously for their betting tips and analysis ahead of this super event. It's obviously taking place in the US. But Owen, thanks again for joining me. Guys, as always, thank you very much for watching.